Michael, this is Margie at the TPA. Did you need something or were you just letting me know you're here?
This is not Michael, the whole thing. I don't know why I'm signed in as Michael.
Oh, this is Joelle?
Yes.
Okay, I'll rename it.
Let's see, am I on? There we go. Good morning. It is 9:01, right? I'd like to call to order the October 7th, 2021 meeting of the TPA's Bicycle Trailways Pedestrian Advisory Committee. The Palm Beach TPA is conducting this meeting in person and virtually using the Zoom webinar platform. Instruction to join the virtual meeting as well as contact information for assistance are provided in the published meeting agenda. Staff, will you please call the roll for a quorum? Note that Jean just came in.
Yes. So I just want to remind the in-person attendees to hit the button on the base, and when it's red on top, it means it's on. And if it's not working, we do have extra microphones. We had some technical issues yesterday. And then for my virtual attendees, if you can please unmute your microphones and then state your name if you're attending on behalf of a representative. Tracy Phelps.
Present.
Bruce Rosenzweig.
Present.
Craig Pinder. Okay, he will be marked as absent for now. Ted Goodenough.
Present.
Joanna Peluso. And I see, Joanna, you joined us virtually.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you so much. Joanne Scaria.
Here.
Fadi Nassar.
Present.
Sally Channon.
Here.
David Willock.
Here.
Jean Matthews.
Present.
Yash Nagal.
Hey, good morning. I'm here.
Michael Owens.
Joyelle Shaw for Michael Owens.
Thank you. Ryan Harding.
Here.
John Roach.
Here.
Larry Wallace.
Ruben Penny for Larry Wallace.
Brian Rusher.
Here.
Stephanie Thoburn.
Present.
We have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Great. So the next item are modifications to the agenda. Are there any modifications, staff?
Yes, Madam Chair, we are asking to remove action item 2B, which was the resolution affirming TPA support for the Atlantic Avenue widening project. This will allow us additional time for staff coordination on the project. The TAC did postpone this item to allow for more coordination, and then we removed it from our citizens advisory. We're removing it from the bicycle trailways, and then we are going to omit it from our board meeting.
Were there any advertising requirements associated with that?
No, Madam Chair.
So it'll come back to us do you think it'll come back to us?
We plan to have it return in December. If something happens that delays the coordination for it to meet our December deadlines for agenda posting, then it'll be at our next meeting, which will be in February.
Okay. Any other modifications needed?
No,
Item
Madam Chair, that
seven.
was the only one.
Okay, so then the next item,
Motion to approve.
there we go.
By Brian.
First, motion by Brian. Do we have a second for the minutes?
I'll second.
Oh, I thought we were
Oh,
on the
I'm
minutes.
sorry.
I thought you were
Brian,
moving
your
ahead.
motion was for the modification to the agenda.
Motion to approve modified agenda.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
I was moving ahead.
So I have
Okay.
a motion by Brian and I missed the who seconded. I'm sorry.
Do we have a
That was
second?
me.
Thank you, Bruce.
Madam,
We can just do a voice.
okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? The modifications to agenda pass. Okay, now. Minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes? If not, can I get a motion? Brian,
Motion to approve the minutes.
do we have a second?
Ted, for a second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The minutes pass. Okay, so next is general public comments and public comments on agenda items. As a reminder, there are 3 ways to provide public comment for the meeting. The first is written comments that can be submitted online on the website, and those directions are provided in the agenda. Verbal comments can be made by virtual attendees using the raise hand button on the Zoom, and verbal and written comments may be provided by an in-person attendee submitting comment cards available at the welcome table at the reception area. Staff, are there any general comments that we've received?
None at this time.
Okay. Seeing no comments. Comments from the board, general comments. Anybody have anything? I don't have anything in particular. Okay. So if you do, feel free to raise your hand.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I do have that Ted raised his hand.
Okay, perfect. Ted, Mr. Good Enough.
I just wanted to remind any presenters that if you do have a graphic on your presentation, you'll want to describe it for those who use screen readers. And also I wanted to thank Melissa for the wonderful interview we did, and then the great blog that she edited and still kept the content that was important, and let Melissa know that it's gone viral. I sent it to my supervisor. She sent it to the ADA coordinators of Florida, and they disseminated it to their constituents and employees.
Thank you, Ted. And I appreciate the reminders at the beginning of the meeting. Perhaps you can do that more regularly so we can all remember, because I know at the end, sometimes it's too late when the presentation is already given. So
I'd be glad to.
the next item is the BTPAC liaisons report, and Alyssa is going to provide us an update.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to see some people in person and others online. So I will dive right into this. We have received 18 out of 28 completed media release forms from committee members. This form will assist the TPA in creating photo and video highlights of work and accomplishments from the board and committee members outside of scheduled meetings. An example is actually what Ted said, being on the blog, which is great. This form can be downloaded on our website and after completion emailed to Margie. The TPA has also received 24 out of 28 responses to the committee member census, which collects members' race, sex, and age. This data will assist us in tracking committee diversity in accordance with state statute. The survey is also available on our website and in the liaison report. The FDOT will be holding a public hearing for the upcoming work program, which includes proposed projects within FDOT District 4 over the next 5 years. The meeting will take place on October 19th at 6:30 with a virtual and in-person option. More information is also available both in our liaison report and on our website and FDOT's website. And then lastly, the TPA has completed a report of COVID-19 impacts on transportation and potential actions to become more adaptable during similar pandemics. This can also be viewed on our website and will be provided a summary at the December meeting. This link, all of the links actually are included in the liaison report. And these are just some highlights to the liaison report, the document that you have in front of you, and where is that one that's available on our website also does have a couple more things. So it's definitely worth checking out.
That was everything on your liaison report?
Yeah, so what we're doing now moving forward is we're actually just trying to cover the more important, they're all important, but high level summary. So we go through it in less time. So there are other items that are again in the document in front of you and the one that's available online, but just moving forward, we're not going to be reading through every single item in the liaison report because they're getting kind of lengthy.
Yeah, so then a question, does the liaison report usually go into the agenda packet as a backup for those folks?
Madam Chair, this is Margie. No, we don't normally attach it because we do usually change it up to a few days before the meeting in case anything comes up. I
Okay.
did email it before the meeting and we do post it on our website prior to the meeting so that you have access both in your email and online to the full document. And it's a little bit easier to click on the hyperlinks we provide.
Okay, it's just, there's always little nuggets of golden information in here that's good for the public to see. So just wanting to make sure people are able to get copies and understand what's happening. All right, so then the next item is item 2A. It is the amendment, right? I'm on the right one. Amendment to the TPA's fiscal year 22 to 2026 Transportation Improvement Program. And Jason Price, the TPA TIP coordinator, is going to present this today.
Good morning, everyone. So this morning, I'm going to present the amendment number 2 to the Transportation Improvement Program. This will be a short presentation. It's a single project that is being amended. And as always, this is an action item that will require a vote at the end of the presentation and discussion. So TIP amendments come before you because a particular change has triggered a cause for an amendment, and those are listed on the board here. And I'll go through a few of these. The reason why an amendment is needed is when a project is either added or deleted from the Transportation Improvement Program, or the cost increases more than 20% and $2 million, or there's a change in the scope, and that's what's happening here, of a length of about a half mile and 20% of the project, or the number of through lanes change. And as always with an amendment, the only project that is impacted when amendment comes before you is the project being listed within the amendment. And although there's quite a few projects in the Transportation Improvement Program, the only project that is impacted through an amendment is the project that is listed here on the next slide. And so, as Ted had mentioned, these are graphics, so they're not necessarily tables. I take these kind of snippets right out of the Transportation Improvement Program. So I'll describe what you see on the on the presentation slide here. And the first part is the existing TIP document. And this particular project is Northmore neighborhood and its various locations because it's a collection of local roadways, residential roadways that are having that are getting sidewalks constructed along them. So the current length of the project is about 1.5 miles long. And it's changing to about 2 miles. So it's over a half mile in difference. And what had happened here was there's two particular roadways that were part of this project and scoped as part of the project. But I think through an administrative error, these two specific roadways was neglected to be included in the length of the project. So FDOT was required to submit an amendment, and I do have the specifics on the two particular roadways that were omitted from the project. And that is Greenwood Avenue from 39th Court to 45th Street and 39th Court from Windsor Avenue to Greenwood Avenue. So those two particular roadways was part of the original scope of the project. They just omitted it in calculating the total length. And so just below the existing TIP, kind of a snippet or cutout from the Transportation Improvement Program is the proposed change. And the proposed changes include increasing the length of the project as well as adding some design funds. And these design funds are roll forward amount funds. If you recall, last month, there was a roll forward amendment that I brought forward to you as a board, as a committee, and it's typically taking funds from the previous TIP document and rolling them forward to this current TIP document. And it's unused funds that kind of straddle 2 fiscal years. And so because this is the most current fiscal year, 2022, the funds from 21 are rolled forward into 2022. And that's what you see here as the PE funds for about almost $3,000 in fiscal year 2022. So that, in a nutshell, that's basically the amendment, is the changing of the length and the addition of those roll forward funds as part of the amendment. And I can take any questions at this time.
Are there any questions from the public?
I have no public comment on this item. I do have Sally with her tent card up, and I'll let you know if I have any virtual hands raised.
Okay, thanks. Sally?
Is this right next to that elementary school? Did you say 39th between Windsor and Greenwood?
Yes, the two streets are Greenwood Avenue and 39th Court. So those are the two streets, and the Greenwood Avenue, it's from 39th Court to 45th Street. And the other one is 39th Court from Windsor Avenue to Greenwood Avenue.
Margie, do we have some?
I have Ted and John.
It's Jason, right?
Yes.
I'm just wondering, you mentioned sidewalks, so these are not mixed use paths?
Yes, there are residential sidewalks or sidewalks in residential neighborhoods.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay,
John?
Yeah, just wanted to answer Sally's question. They are near Northmore Elementary. They're within the same neighborhood, just a couple lots away from the elementary itself. Not immediately adjacent to, but a part of that neighborhood, yes. Obviously, it's a West Palm project. I'll be supporting it, but again, it's for the amendment only, not the TIP as a whole. So, thank you.
Jason, are there any more comments? Do you have a graphic showing, the boundaries and how they changed? A map, perhaps? Because it would be helpful if we saw any of that.
Yeah, I didn't put together a map of these specific locations, but I could follow up and probably go into Google and to go to these specific streets to where they are.
I think it would help the next, when
Yeah.
it goes to the governing board, if you have something like that.
If you give me a second, I can pull it up.
Okay, thank you, Alyssa. I'm pretty familiar with the area, but sometimes you just have to visualize it, you know? While they're doing that, I have another question. How is it that a half a mile, because I'd like to know this when I do one of my projects. We're adding basically a half a mile to the length of this project with not a significant amount of increase in costs.
The cost was already incorporated for these two segments. They had just omitted calculating it as part of the total length of the project.
Oh, I see.
That's why we don't see an addition in length and an addition in construction funds. It wasn't kind of,
Okay.
it was just omitted, I think, administratively from the project and not.
It was a little error that was a half a mile in calculating the overall length. Okay, got it. Oh, okay. We've got a graphic up here, Jason, if you could explain it for those of us who can't see it all.
So the two streets we're looking for are Greenwood Avenue and 39th Court.
Is Greenwood at the top of the,
So Greenwood, sorry, I'm going to jump in here. Greenwood is this corridor that you see my mouse going along. It's the north-south roadway on that eastern boundary of all of the blue lines. And then 39th is this east-west roadway at the southern extent of the blue lines.
and that is the school that it's abutting? Okay, so
Yes, that's
then,
the school.
gotcha. So to answer our, okay, that makes sense. It was planned to be by the school. It was omitted basically as a scrivener's error, and it's being updated to include what was already planned for. Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions or comments for Jason? We have a motion to recommend adoption of the amendment number 2.
Move approval.
That was Sally. Do I have a second?
Brian, second.
Brian, second. Do you want to poll or just,
For our records, it's easier if I can do a roll
Okay.
call.
gotcha.
So just to clarify for everybody, the motion on the floor is to recommend adoption of amendment number 2 to the TPA's fiscal year 22 to 26 tip as presented. And then if, well, when I call your name, please state yes or no. Tracy Phelps,
Yes.
Bruce Rosenzweig,
Yes.
Craig Pinder. Oh, he'll be marked as absent. Ted Goodenough,
Yes.
Joanna Paluso,
Yes.
Joanne Scaria,
Yes.
Fadi Nassar,
Yes.
Sally Shannon,
Yes.
David Willock,
Yes.
Jean Matthews,
Yes.
Yash Nagal,
Yes.
Joelle Shaw,
Yes.
Ryan Harding,
Yes.
John Roach,
Yes.
Ryan Rusher,
Yes.
Stephanie Thilburn.
Yes.
It passes unanimously, Madam Chair.
Okay. So the next item would have been the Jog Road in Atlantic, but that got taken off of the meeting. So the next item is the 2022 Transportation Alternatives Program Guidelines and Scoring System. Alyssa will be presenting this item.
Just had to run and grab the clicker. Okay, so this is going to look very familiar to a lot of you. Just as a reminder, we did talk about this in March of this past year. So you'll see a lot of the things that we talked about reflected in these guidelines. So as an overview, the transportation program or alternatives program funds on and off pedestrian and bicycle facilities and safe routes to school projects. This year, we are looking at $3.3 million of available funding. And as a lot of us can remember, it's a $1 million maximum per project and a $250,000 minimum for a project. And again, this funding can fund sidewalks, bicycle facilities, pedestrian bicycle signals, lighting, safety improvements as a whole. So our application deadline this year is going to be Friday, February 18th at 5 p.m. And that is going to be 2022. So the design funding will be available in 2023 and then construction funding available July 1st of 2025. So the proposed program dates will run through everything. The program kickoff will be October 21st, 2021, after the approval of the governing board. Then on October 26th, 2021, we will be hosting our annual program application workshop. This will be held at our office with limited seating for in-person. This will also be recorded live and streamable via Zoom. We will be doing again this year a pre-application meeting that is required for all applicants or potential applicants. Those meetings can be scheduled with TPA staff for any time within the time frame of November 1st to January 31st. So we're trying to give you guys some time to sit down with us and DOT and talk about what you want to get funded and propose. The application deadline, as I mentioned, is February 18th, 2022 at 5 p.m. That is a Friday. And the exciting one, the BTPAC scoring presentations that will occur on April 7th, 2022. So a reminder, we will have our regular BTPAC meeting that morning, the break for lunch, and then come back in that afternoon and do presentations and scoring. The draft priority projects list to committees and board will happen at the July meeting in 2022. And then after that July meeting, after that goes to the governing board, we will submit that final project priorities list to FDOT on July 22nd, 2022. And just a reminder, we are requiring that any projects that are asking for funding for capital or asking for funding from us are listed in the capital improvement program or local program of projects no later than April 15th, 2023. And we will give you guys reminders for that as we get closer. So now we're going to talk about some of the changes to the scoring that we've seen. Again, this is what was discussed and approved back in March by the governing board. So the first thing we're going to see is that we actually removed the pedestrian and bicycle facility length points multiplier. So in the past, you were seeing that there was a maximum. So if you had, let's say, 3 miles of a shared use path, you would still be capped out at 10. We are still capping it out at 10 points per facility. But I guess previously, if you had a buffered bicycle lane that was being proposed for a project length of 3 miles, that would be capped out at 6 points, whereas now we're allowing that to be capped out at 10. So that would be, 3.5 miles worth of buffered bicycle lanes that you could get awarded points for. So that is the first change. The second change is that we've added a 10-foot plus shared use path to bicycle facility points, acknowledging that that is a facility for both pedestrians and cyclists. We are awarding that 5 points. And because of that, we are actually reducing separated or raised bicycle lanes to 4 points. So we still maintain that hierarchy of points. The next change that you see is that we have actually updated the traditionally underserved index based on best practices. I will touch on more in another slide that's coming up, but this was previously, I'll touch on it in a second, actually. But so this looks at project benefits traditionally underserved communities, and it's ranked as a maximum of 10 points, which previously we had 2 different categories that were 5 points each that I will get to. But if it is identified as a very high area to benefit traditionally underserved, you will be awarded 10 points. If it's high, 6, medium, 3, or low, 0. And lastly, we revised the language to include points for projects connecting to multiple trail intersections, regional parks, and designated natural areas. So this is the slide I was just mentioning. The traditionally underserved index was previously looking at median household income and actually traditionally underserved, but we did include in our update to this a couple other criteria in this weighting. So previously it was only inclusive of racial minority, ethnic minority, limited English proficiency, persons with disabilities, elderly, which is 65 and plus, and 0 vehicle households. We have since included below poverty youth, which is 5 to 21, and low education attainment, which we are considering less than high school diploma. So that is going to be, like I said, a maximum of 10 points and weighted based on the amount of the population that will be affected by the project. Oops. And just a reminder, we are doing our annual grant application workshop on February 26, 2021 from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. at our office and virtually and streaming and recorded. And the applications are due February 18th, 2022 at 5 p.m. Also, I do want to touch on, in addition to the Transportation Alternatives Program, we also do have the annual Local Initiatives Program, which will have the same timeline as the TA. And we are also introducing a new funding program, which is state road modifications, which will be for projects that are on the state road system. And that will also be touched on at the funding program workshop. And that is it on my presentation. We are making a motion to recommend approval of the fiscal year 21 TA program guidelines and scoring criteria.
Marjorie, do we have any public comment?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay. I see Brian put his, has. Okay, Brian.
I just am wondering the thinking behind penalizing separated and raised bike lanes in relationship to shared use paths. I think in the literature, they're kind of treated as the same for level of traffic stress. So could you just shed some light on that, where the staff were thinking with respect to a 4 instead of a 5?
Yeah, sorry. Forgot I have the clicker. Sorry about that. So the reasoning behind that, went too far. So a shared use path, like I said, this is going to, we needed it to be reflective or reflect the same as what it's showing in bicycle facilities. I'm hiding a slide, sorry. So we have a shared use path for 10 feet as both a pedestrian facility and a bicycle facility, since it accommodates both users. We have it as 10 points. We have it as 10 points for both to maintain just consistency. The reasoning behind dropping it is, one, because a raised or separated bicycle facility does not accommodate both users. Two, again, to maintain that hierarchy. It's not saying, I mean, if you're having a project that's greater than 2 miles, you're still going to get awarded for it. It's just to have, so there is a difference in the types of facilities that are being provided. Sorry, I'm just trying to get the scoring slide on hidden. So this slide should look familiar to a lot of you. This is the slide that we actually had discussed last year, both through BTPAC and through our scoring committee. And these were actually all approved in March by the governing board with the scoring criteria. That's the reasoning behind it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jean.
I'm sorry, Jean, can you use your microphone? Thank you.
Can you pull up the slide on the underserved communities? what I'm wondering is the way I've traditionally gotten my data on these items was through the census tract. And so it's within 1 mile of the project site. Is there a method to get it if you have multiple census tracts that are within 1 mile, but they might extend like 1.5 miles or 1.25 miles out? Is there an easy way to get this data?
So the data that we do have available on our website, and we can post it onto our data hub. This, I guess for reference, when we have applicants do submitting of applications, we do have a map that will show you all of the different elements that are being scored as criteria on that map. So you would just drop in or look at where your project is, and it would be according to these tracks.
Okay, and this is probably not a politically correct question, but after the census came back, the 2020 census, there's many areas that do not have anybody who's 50% of the population. And so would a minority be the least of, the lowest of the 3 categories or 4 categories?
Yeah, I believe so, but let me get back to you on that.
Okay.
Margie, were there any other?
I do have John Roach with his hand raised.
John?
Hi, good morning. I was actually going to ask the same question that Brian had brought up. I was curious, we're seeing a lot of things that are brought before us shifting towards this shared use path as opposed to, separated bike lanes and so forth. And this kind of reflects that. Is that the direction that the TPA is looking to go with projects? Is that where their preference is going? And also, because if you do the 10-foot shared use path, you not only get the 10 points potentially as a bicycle facility, but you're also getting 10 points as a pedestrian facility, as opposed to if the project just has a separated bike lane, you don't get both categories, like you would, which, personally, I think the separated bike lanes, especially in some of the urban environments in which we're dealing with, have a potentially greater impact. Shared use paths create some conflicts between pedestrians, cyclists, vehicles with driveways and curb cuts and so forth. So, there's a lot of instances where I think separated bike lanes would actually be higher on the priority list. So, I'm just curious, is shared use path the direction that the TPA wants to go with a lot of these projects? And that's the reason that this is being reflected like this?
Yes. So we were actually given direction by our governing board that certain roadways with a speed limit, I believe over 35 miles an hour, should be having separated or shared use paths for facilities. Just there's less likelihood of getting users on the roadway, and also just for safety purposes. And in regards to separated bicycle lanes, I think you had a question about that, or the first part of your question was about that. These separator ends at right turn lanes and make cyclists feel exposed on larger roadways when required to ride in a keyhole condition. Raised bicycle lanes are also more likely to be above the curb and could be scored as a shared use pathway as well. So.
Right. I'm just curious of what the position is regarding the shared use path and the flow of traffic, the fact you can ride against traffic, vehicles coming out of driveways aren't really looking for, cyclists coming that opposite direction and so forth. So, it's just my opinion, but I was just curious if that was a policy direction of the TPA. So.
Okay. Do we have another? We have 3 more.
Yeah.
Who's next, Margie?
So if John's done, then I have Ted, Joanne, and Brian.
Okay. Mr. Goodenough.
Yes, I'm vehemently opposed to shared use paths. It's hard to say. The reason is if a person who is deaf is pushing one of those SUV-sized strollers and their 3-year-old is running around in front of them, and a courteous bicyclist comes up behind them and says, "On your left," and the person doesn't hear them, and the 3-year-old doesn't know what it means. And it's inevitable that eventually some bicyclist is going to hit a 3-year-old, and that 3-year-old is not going to come out of it very well. That's my comment. I don't think I can vote for anything that is a shared use path. Thanks.
Joanne?
Thank you. My question has to do with the traditionally underserved index. Is this an index that's developed by the TPA? Do you compile the data and come up with this map, or?
So yes, we actually had our transportation planner, Kelsey, help out with that. And she developed this criteria based on 2019 ACS data on environmental justice populations.
I'm just looking at the North County and Gardens area, and there's not a lot of blue. So this is a category where we could have gotten a couple points in previous years, but looks like we won't be eligible for any. So
yes, so this will be, if approved, the scoring for moving forward, but unfortunately not for previous years and application cycles.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, and Margie, who was next to
I
O'Brien?
just was gonna say, I don't see a major issue with the shared use paths versus raised bike lanes. I do want to just put on the record that, you know, this could have some downstream impacts, especially for our more urban areas where you might not be able to fit as wide of a shared use path with respect to the separated bike lanes. They might be a little bit more compact with respect to the rights of way that we are dealing with. So I will be happily moving forward with a motion to adopt as recommended, with the caveat that, you know, during scoring, we give a little bit more deference to the needs of the communities as they put in their projects as they come forward. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to move adoption if there are no further comments.
Before we get there, I have one comment.
Okay.
It's okay, but I
Forgot the chair goes last.
I'm happy to hear you make that motion. One comment really is that, could you footnote this section on project benefits traditionally underserved, and then footnote these criteria underneath the table so that they're available? I mean, so that they're right under the table and you can see how the scoring works when we get the score. Because, you know, when we score them, you know, we'll want to check the boxes and check the census data and all of those things. But, and then another comment, just while you were talking, Brian, about, you know, not being able to get the scoring for a shared use path, but you would be able to probably get more. It's particularly in these more urban areas, you see more of the blue of the traditionally underserved, so that those points will then go up. And I think in the long run, what this revised scoring does is to further prioritize the need and the users to get the money. Because while I'm up in Jupiter and Joanne and I are up in Jupiter and Palm Beach Gardens, you know, we don't have as many, the number of population. So putting that money into the areas that has greater need is definitely valuable. So I can see that from a regional standpoint as a planner, not necessarily for my community, but understand, and, you know, we need to do what's best for the overall area. So we have a motion to.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, while you were talking, or before you started talking, Fadi raised his hand.
Okay,
And
Fadi.
while you were talking, Jean raised her 10 card.
Yeah, I have a question regarding traditionally underserved index. I mean, for us to try to evaluate different project, is there like a GIS map where I can locate a project and get a combined index for those? How does it work? I mean, before we kind of fill an application just to have an idea about the worthiness of certain projects?
Sure. So what we typically do, so right now, if you look at our funding website, if you look at our transportation alternatives website, it's still showing stuff from last year. We will update this actually immediately after our governing board meeting in a couple weeks. At that point, you will have a link on that website to a GIS map where you will be able to see all of the scoring criteria that will also include this. And I think Kelsey is coming up to the podium to touch on something very quickly.
Sure, yeah. I just want to let you know that the traditionally underserved index is currently up on our TPA map. So you can look and see on that map, and it's broken down so you can see each by block group, if it's very high, medium, or low.
So if I understood correctly, I can locate on the map a project and I would get information about the different points? Or is it more about I need to do for every category I need to add up? Or
Margie, or Alyssa, do you think you can pull that map up so we can see it? Just so
Yes,
we
Madam
can.
Chair, I'm sorry if you can bear with me.
Thank you.
And I guess it is also worth noting that all of these components will be available on our performance measure platform as well. So that will all be able to be viewed at there.
Yeah, and the performance measures platform is also, once we have that up, going to show each block group it'll show the traditionally underserved index like is shown here, and then it's also going to show each indicator separately, so you can see that as well.
okay, so we do have to kind of add them up and come up with a total score.
No, it'll show that just for your own, in case people want to know, but the index is already calculated here, so you don't have to do any of that calculation. So if you
Okay.
click on a block group on the map, it'll show the very high, medium, or low score, which is what corresponds to the scoring or to the TA scoring.
Okay, thank you. My other question, I know we talked about it before. When you measure length of a project, is it a one-way or a two-way? If you have sidewalk on one side, how does it count versus sidewalk on two sides?
So it is the measurement of one way. It's the length of the roadway segment. If you have, let's say, well, that is in general for the length of the project. If you're saying you are doing 2 miles worth of sidewalk, it would be the amount of sidewalk going in there.
So if it's a 1 mile two-way, that would be 2 miles?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Who is next, Margie?
I have Jean, and then I do have another hand raised, but I
Okay.
lost control. I need to go back.
Jean.
Fadi, you asked all my questions, but and thank you for the clarifications. I just want to say that this tool is amazing because I write a lot of grants and I'm going to be able to use this tool in other applications. So it's quite an undertaking to have developed it. Thank you.
It is. And did I see Joelle?
I did have that, but she lowered her hand again.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I'm sorry, but Fatty had asked a question that I actually wanted to know about. But just quickly, the footnote that the chair was referencing, is that just a comment or will that be incorporated? She was referencing she would like to see a footnote.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Since that was their request, if we can do that.
Yeah,
We can incorporate that,
the
definitely.
intent was to list each of in the table, what the points were, just so we have that. And then when we click on it, we can click on that wonderful tool and know
Yes.
immediately what it is.
So we can definitely include that as a footnote to the scoring. Would you like the weight in there as well, or just the names of what was included in that?
It would be good to have the weight as well. And that, so just so we can just look at it and understand how.
Okay, we will definitely make sure to include that.
I have Bruce with his hand raised.
Okay, Bruce.
Yeah, thank you. I just have a fundamental question about the scoring system. Is there a threshold score that needs to be attained for any given project to be moved forward, or is it based, we send projects ahead to be implemented based on how much money is available? I don't know this.
So thank you for that reminder. And I guess I can definitely touch on that since we do have some new members from last year. So actually very quickly, we did remove the requirement for 25-point minimum because we have seen that we typically don't receive a lot of applications that do maintain that. And you know, we try to award projects until the funding is exhausted. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thanks.
Yes.
Okay, was there anybody else? And we had a motion from Brian.
Yes, just to clarify for me, Brian, your motion is to recommend approval of the 2022 TA scoring with the caveat that during scoring that the BTPAC has allowance to adjust the scoring to meet the needs of the community?
No, because we can re-rank as we see fit. I would just make a motion to approve as discussed to footnote the minority index with
Okay.
Stephanie. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Ryan Harding, I second.
Ryan Harding, second.
And then I did have Sally raise and lowered her tent card. I don't know if you want discussion after the motion.
Sally.
I was wondering, and I'm glad to hear that the 25 point guideline was removed. Was anything done to clarify, for example, the addition of lighting that would change the range of use of a facility versus giving points for a brand new facility that comes in, or any other similar improvement to a project that would increase the utility of an existing project? That was one of the issues with the project by the college, was that it was going to be lighted. It's a completely separated pathway. It was going to be lighted so that it would be of utility for students and people that don't finish work until 9:30 and before. It was going to extend the hours of use of that project.
Okay, sorry. This one?
I did see, I mean, while they're talking, I did see that the existing criteria says provides project lighting in dark unit crash location. But it's not new. And that was for 5 points. I'm not, if that helps.
So we did not add any criteria this year for lighting to address something. I believe you're talking about the El Rio Trail lighting project from Boca Raton from last year. At this time, we have not included anything. We do still have the score item in there, though, for a project improves lighting along a Vision Zero crash corridor. But like I said, at this time, we have not included anything specific to adding lighting to an existing facility.
Okay. Margie, do you mind polling everyone?
No, I don't mind. I always pause because as soon as I say there's no more hands, someone raises their, oh, see.
Sally, are you raising your hand again?
Yes.
Okay, Sally.
I do want to say that I am going to vote in support of this. I'm disappointed. I think that some of the basic issues that came up last time with having a project that was a very good project, fortunately brought forward by a local government that has plenty of wherewithal to bring something to the TPA and bring it up and bring it forward and get what everybody agreed was an excellent project in spite of the fact that it scored something like 20 or 22 points in actual under the additional scoring. So I'm going to support this, but I do want to say that I hope the committee will continue to look at ways in which there can be something that's put out publicly in public notice to encourage communities to bring forward projects that they're going to have people like Jean sitting back in their offices scoring and going, we have no chance of doing this, but we'll encourage them to know that if they have something that doesn't fit into the checkbox, but is a good project and good for their community, that they will bring it forward and be able to argue for that.
Okay,
And I have Ted with his hand raised.
Mr. Good Enough.
I am not going to support this because for the disabled community, there are so many bad things about shared use paths, and with them getting that much weight, I can't go along with it. If a cyclist pass a person on the autism spectrum and doesn't have the courtesy to say on your left, it could startle that person and throw them into a seizure. If they don't have the courtesy to say on your left to a person using a guide dog or a white cane, it could startle that dog, and you never know what's going to happen in those cases. So I'm not going to support this. And I was brought in to support the disabled community. So therefore I cannot support the grading system. That's all.
Okay. Anybody else?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay.
So
Marjorie,
if
will
you're
you-
ready,
Yes.
the motion on the floor is to recommend approval of the 2022 Transportation Alternatives Program Guidelines and Scoring System with the change to include a footnote. So when I call your name, please state yes or no. And my staff will help unmute you if you have any issues. Tracy Phelps?
No.
Sorry,
No.
no? Okay, thank you. Bruce Rosenzweig? Bruce, did I lose you?
Sorry. Yeah,
Okay.
I was muted. Yes.
Thank you. Craig Pender? I don't believe he's joined us, but I just want to double check. No, so he will be marked as absent. Ted Goodenough?
No.
Joanna Paluso?
Yes.
Joanne Scaria?
Yes.
Fadi Nassar?
Yes.
Sally Shannon?
Yes.
David Willock?
Yes.
Jean Matthews?
Yes.
Yash Nagal?
Yes.
Joelle Shaw?
Yes.
Ryan Harding?
Yes.
John Roach?
Yes.
Ryan Rusher?
Yes.
Stephanie Thoburn?
Yes.
It passes with 2 opposed, Madam Chair.
Okay. All right, the next item is a resolution requesting timely submittal of FDOT's fiscal year 2023 to 2027 draft tentative work program. There's 2 items associated with this. One is the resolution, and then I see the other one is a presentation from the Turnpike folks. Do you think we should take I think we should take the resolution first, because the Turnpike item wasn't submitted in our packet. Does anybody else have any thoughts about that? Disagree? Okay, so Alyssa, if you can explain.
Sure. So action item D is for a resolution requesting a timely submittal of FDOT's draft tentative work program to the TPA. FDOT was not able to compile and provide either the district or the Turnpike draft tentative work program in time for inclusion in the agenda packet. We do have the Turnpike list of projects here today, but still have not received the district's draft tentative work program to date. Since TPA staff and committee members cannot thoroughly review projects and funding prior to approval, it does not allow for a collaborative process between partners. Attached is a draft resolution requesting timely submittal to the TPA to facilitate a thorough review process.
Do we have any public comments on this before we start with our
You have no public comments, Madam Chair.
Okay. Comments from the committee? I have, okay, go ahead, Jean.
Motion to approve.
Okay, well, I have one comment. Or question first is, in this resolution, is there a specific time frame in which the TPA typically requests the submittal of the work program?
Yes, so we would like to request, and it's in this resolution, at least 2 weeks prior to the advisory committee meetings so that our staff is able to review, provide it as backup to the advisory committees, and then we can discuss it with everyone being able to have enough time to review in advance of our committee meeting dates.
Okay,
So 2 weeks.
So section 2B states 2 weeks prior
Correct.
to advisory committee meetings to allow adequate time of TPA staff. Okay, got it. Is there any, while we're here, is there any requirement or interlocal agreement between you, the TPA and FDOT in order to ensure that happens, or is this just a friendly reminder that?
More so the latter. There is not a specific interlocal agreement, and the requirement is that we receive it, but there is not a requirement for time. So this is a request.
Okay. And I have seen this tactic with FDOT time and time again, where they have a requirement to do public outreach, to coordinate with governments, and they don't always, they do it, but they do it as a matter of, I've checked the box. So, in order to address this, I think it's important to do resolutions and to reiterate those things. But I happen to know one of the assistant secretary of the Department of Transportation, Brad Thoburn, and I am going to speak with him about these kinds of things as well. So, and I support this as well. So, Jean, do you want to make the motion?
I make a motion to approve the resolution to have FDOT provide their data in a timely manner.
Do we have a second?
Brian Rusher, second.
Thank you. Margie?
Yes, ma'am. So the motion on the floor is to recommend adoption of the resolution requesting timely submittal of FDOT's fiscal year 23 to 27 draft tentative work program to the TPA as we presented it to you. So when I state your name, please either state yes or no. Tracy Phelps.
Yes.
Bruce Rosenzweig.
Yes.
Craig Pinder. I believe is still absent, but I just want to double check. Yes, so he will be marked as absent. Ted Goodenough.
Yes.
Joanna Paluso.
Yes.
Joanne Scaria.
Yes.
Fadi Nassar.
Yes.
Sally Shannon.
Yes.
David Willock.
Yes.
Jean Matthews.
Yes.
Yash Nagal.
Yes.
Joelle Shaw.
Yes.
Ryan Harding.
Yes.
John Roach.
Yes.
Brian Rusher.
Yes.
Stephanie Thoburn.
Yes.
It passes unanimously, Madam Chair.
Okay. So on to information items and the
Madam Chair, I'm sorry. Did you want to have the Turnpike's presentation now?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I got a little worked up there, so forgive me, please. Please, we have before us Victoria is Jessica Rubio from FDOT and Victoria Williams from the Turnpike.
So Jessica won't be attending. We unfortunately only have Victoria from the Turnpike. We won't have anyone from FDOT. It's fortunate she's here, but it's unfortunate that FDOT didn't attend. We love
Oh,
Victoria.
okay.
Sorry.
Thank you for being here.
Lights on. My pleasure to be here this fine morning. Victoria Williams. I'm an FDOT employee. I work for the Turnpike. Florida's Turnpike is like the 8th district. You know, you have the districts that provide you with your local and CIS type of opportunities to fund projects. And the Florida's Turnpike system has provided information to talk to you about today. It's like our budget, you know, it's what we're going to spend money on in the next 5 years. So we'll go over the Turnpike's tentative work program for fiscal year 2023 up to 2027. In Palm Beach County, we've got about 60 miles in one direction of Turnpike, State Road 91. And, you know, when you talk about lane miles, you have to double that for a 2-lane road because it's up and back. So point being, we do have some segments that are a little wider, and we're going to talk about future and past work we've done. The Turnpike has a map. We have several different facilities, and as an FDOT type of district, we're operating under Florida statutes. The Florida statutes do have requirements for us. We have these limited access facilities. We like to say that we provide a safe, efficient, and affordable means of travel. There are 6 FDOT districts and 19 counties that these roads run through. So what we're going to talk about today is in District 4, and that includes several other counties. Our work program document that we provided is a summary of projects, and I'll hold this up to see, has this been provided to the committee? Thank you.
We did provide it in person, but I will also post it on our website following the meeting.
Excellent. This is a large document for Turnpike. It's 18 pages for District 4. So I'll zero in on these items a little better as we go along. The very first page of this project, of this District 4 project overview, tells you what we did in the last 2 years from fiscal year 21 to 22, about $95 million in those counties from Broward up to Indian River. So when we look at these samples of what we did last year, we're going to also then talk about the next 5 years, which is about $2.1 billion in all those counties. The good news for Palm Beach County, you've got the bulk of it, mostly like almost half, it's shown on page 2. The total for Palm Beach County is $1,018 million in funded projects spread out over all 5 years. So then we display alphabetically a summary of our major projects. So flip over to page 9. Broward County has a lot of things that we're doing there too. And page 9 will start some of our projects, and we'll get into the details of that in just a bit. But I think it's important to know what it is about Florida's Turnpike that we do. You know, we work with the Department of Transportation's ethic of vital few. These core areas are to improve safety, number 1, enhance mobility, and inspire innovation. We like to say we're also fostering the talent that we're using in our staff. Our mission is to meet the state's growing transportation needs, ensuring value to customers that use the limited access facility. We're also protecting investors, and we're trying to manage this Turnpike in a business-like manner. That's why it's called an enterprise. With that mission in mind, let's look at slide 4. This discusses revenues and expenditures for Florida's Turnpike. We do not collect any revenue from gas taxes or other types of taxes that the district funds projects with. This slide will illustrate that we collect revenue through user tolls and concessions at the service plazas. So according to our bond covenants, the Turnpike must pay for operations and maintenance costs first. Keep that roadway safe. This includes the cost to collect and process toll payments. Then we must pay off debt on those bonds that are issued to construct major projects. I want to note for you that due to our very high credit rating, the Turnpike has historically benefited from some of the lowest borrowing costs in the toll industry nationwide. Then we'll we will invest this revenue into renewal and replacement, such as a resurfacing project periodically, or other type of recurring improvement, guardrail, etc. Finally, we're going to use our remaining funds to pay for capital improvements such as widenings or interchanges. Slide 5 out of 7 talks about the various ways that we determine how to prioritize what we're funding. This is very dependent on the project type. So on the left, we'll see resurfacing. All of our projects have to demonstrate a transportation need. And according to those conditions and the number of lane miles and how heavy the usage has been, we make sure the surface of the roadway on the Turnpike is safe. All of our prioritizations consider that primary. Widening and interchange projects, we rank those in priority. Annually, we look at the entire system. We observe the traffic data. You know, we've got that very well documented with the user fees, the tolls. We know how many and what kind of vehicles are using the road. Expansion projects. We also project, just so you know, to see what kind of growth patterns there are. We work with local planning agencies. We see what kind of projects are coming up and new cities may pop up in a county. These kind of things are important for us to know. Delivery, large warehousing, you know, we're a system that freight uses very heavily to deliver our goods. Stakeholder input is very important and is considered throughout this process. Any kind of expansion project that we do, we have to meet all economic feasibility and environmental feasibility as part of prioritizing these jobs. So I have 2 slides that will go over the projects in Palm Beach County. And there's a map, and you'll see it starts at the lower part of the county. If you're looking at the handout, we have a map that includes the lower and the upper, the entire Palm Beach County on page 16. And there are little flags that give you details on each of the projects, and we've color coded it so you can see the link. I like to look at things graphically, so it's helpful for me to be able to tell you about these. On the left, we have descriptions. We also have phases. You know, we describe what those acronyms are in the written document. We'll tell you what RRU means, and we'll tell you that CST means construction. And the fiscal year is when we have the funds dedicated. So the West Palm Beach Service Plaza is detailed with a little more information. As I said, starting on page 9, we've got several pages of these jobs. So West Palm Beach Service Plaza parking improvements on page 12 says we're going to add 30 northbound spots, 35 southbound, and 15 more truck parking spots. If you've been by there, it's very heavily used. The truckers are parking on the ramp. So we're trying our best to make this opportunity a better one for those using the facility. We're going to redesign a little bit of our off ramp there. A lot of pond reconstruction and ditches. They're doing a lot of work there. The widening was funded in past years, so we're seeing that come to fruition. The next item on the list, interchange improvements at Boynton Beach Boulevard. Again, we've got some more details on here. The Boynton Beach Boulevard, milepost 86. We call this a transportation system management and operations, TSM&O, interchange improvement. So particularly, we're looking at the northbound ramp terminals and the ramps. We're going to improve those with a dual exit ramp. Going to extend the main line, add turn lanes and storage units, because backing up in the Turnpike can be deadly. We don't want traffic to stop on this high-speed limited access facility. So that's why we're working on those signal upgrades as well down there at the ramp intersection. Then we're looking at drainage improvements. We've done a lot of work with South Florida Water Management District, and there needs to be about $85 million in this drainage improvement job. This is north of Glades Road, going up to north of Atlantic. what do we got there? About 5 miles. And we're funding it to look at it and make it safe and stable. Widening from north of Glades Road up to this L38 canal is going to take $200 million, and we've spread that out. Construction's going to be out near the end in 2027. So we're just starting engineering on that effort. TSM&O, I've explained what that is. We're adding auxiliary lanes. This is before widening, actually. We're trying to fix conditions as quickly as possible for, again, major congestion. So we're looking at that project construction to come up real soon, 2024, 25. Now looking at the upper part of the county, this job to widen Beeline Highway, it's a District 4 job. FDOT District 4 is running it. We're contributing 30 million because we're going to need to have the bridge widened. If we're going to widen the turnpike, that bridge, Beeline Highway over it, we need to widen it. So we're working with district. We funded 30 million. Widening from north of Okeechobee Boulevard up to Beeline Highway is planned. We've got that project working further out. Let's see what that includes. Borough 61436. Thank you. Yeah, we're going to do a lot of stormwater drainage improvements with that one, increasing travel lanes as well. Widening from Southern Boulevard up to Okeechobee Boulevard. That will include interchange improvements at Jog Road and Okeechobee Boulevard and Southern Boulevard. Widening from West Palm Beach Service Plaza up to Southern Boulevard. Again, these are phased so that we can work them in and do this all consistently. We've got them phased with the majority of construction of 206 million in fiscal year 24, widening from that plaza up to Southern Boulevard. And again, as a driver, it pretty much slows down there pretty badly. So we're wanting to widen that as quick as possible. Well, I think this is my last slide. This tells you the website. You can click there and learn a lot of great info about the work program. You can download the District 4 public hearing report and get all of the turnpike monies that are spent, all of the district monies that are spent, so that we are very transparent for the public. Well, I do appreciate your time on this fine morning, and I wonder if there's any questions.
Do we have public comments on this item first?
No, Madam Chair, and I do have 2 virtual hands raised and so far 2 tent cards.
Okay, who's Jean?
Excellent presentation. Thank you. And I love driving the turnpike. So from Broward to Glades, the ultimate build out is 8 lanes. And then from Glades to the L38 canal, where is the L38 canal? Is going to be 10 lanes. And then it jumps from the service plaza to Beeline back down to 8. And then from Beeline to Blue Heron to 6. Is there any reason that we don't just go, knowing the growth that's happening, just go 10 lanes, the entire length from the Broward line to the Blue Heron?
Yes, ma'am. We need to show the economic feasibility and the need. These have to be demonstrated with our traffic trends. We see a heavier use in the bottom part of Southeast Florida. And as we move north, physically in Palm Beach County, we can literally see that need tighten. We're looking at our ultimate build out. We're looking at the system as a long haul, and we're incorporating the idea as well in the southern part of Palm Beach County of through lanes. And that will be those that go a longer trip. There's not as many merging for interchanges. And that supports the folks that are just driving from Orlando to the Keys and back, right? So they're not as much effect on the local traffic. We don't charge any extra for that trip, kind of like an express lane, but we do restrict trucks from going in there. And we don't see a need really at this point to move it forward. And Palm Beach TPA's long-range plans also don't forecast a need at that level yet. But some of these we're looking at trying not to impinge on right away. We're keeping our lines, and we do have a gas line to deal with. So we're trying to configure and stay away from the gas line on the east side and work with those partners to get the best we can from that system. When we look at planned new development, et cetera, we want to know usage. We want to know how can we support the community's needs. So when some big Amazon facility, et cetera, comes online, we know that they're working with local planning organizations. And we do also look at the TPA's long-range plans and what needs they think are going to be there for freight to use our system, let's say. At this point, that's what we're dealing with. We've got some fairly well-established residential up in the northern part of our county, correct? And so as we move even further, starting at Jupiter, we had a 37-mile segment from Jupiter up to Fort Pierce that we were analyzing same way to see what kind of growth, get with the locals, and let us learn more about that area. I hope that's been helpful.
It has, and I have a couple other questions. When Broward to Glades is going to be 8 and Glades to the L38 canal is going to be 10, it's never a problem to go wider, but I know, how do you successfully reduce 2 lanes? Like it's fine when you go through the Boynton toll plaza because it all just comes out kind of as a big area and then you just find your lane. And so that works, but I'm wondering, are these going to happen, these lane reductions at toll plazas, like where you're driving through? So you have to slow down so you have an opportunity to get in a lane?
I'm glad you brought that up. We are removing toll booths and taking away the ability to pay for your toll in cash. We feel that's more environmentally appropriate. Cars aren't slowing down. It also keeps traffic moving. Electronic toll collection has become mainstream. The very least expensive way to pay a toll is to have a transponder. And using that transponder to pay your toll, it's a prepaid toll account. There's no service charge at all. But folks that are just driving without a transponder will get billed. It's a little higher toll rate. And there's also a administrative fee to mail it. So we highly encourage folks to look at the opportunities there. We're also looking at interchanges where we're removing those booths, enhancing them, letting traffic move better. The removal of it at Glades has been a very well received by locals to keep folks moving at that intersection.
Then I just have one comment. We here work with trails. Dyer Park at the Beeline Highway has a lot of trails. Then we have Winding Water. They have a lot of trails. Solid Waste Authority, they have a lot of trails. And one of the things we're looking at is connectivity between the Dyer Park trails and the Solid Waste Authority trails. At some point, there's like a railroad bridge tunnel that'll open up, but not for many years. So one of the things I'd like to see is at the Blue Heron, the Beeline, actually, when you replace that bridge, if you do a straight up and down vertical wall instead of a sloped wall, it would give enough room to do a multi-purpose path that could then connect Dyer Park into the Solid Waste Authority. We've looked at it, we've taken photos, but on the railroad right of way is wide there, and the railroad will not, no matter how hard we try, give consent. Maybe it'll change in future years, but if we change that wall, then we would have room and then we can do trail connectivity.
Interesting. I appreciate you talking about that. These jobs are planned fairly far out, but it's a great time to work together and discuss those possibilities.
My last question is, will everything happen at once? Or is it, I'm just thinking about commuting, or will it be phased?
Phased.
Okay,
Yeah, and
thank
you
you.
can see that with our funding, and that's a great point. There's been a lot of disruption when there's construction, but we've kept the main lines open. Frankly, during COVID, we found an opportunity to really shut down a couple of facilities because of the lack of use. People were staying home, and get some projects really escalated instead of a 3-month, oh, you got to let traffic keep going by. We just shut her down. It took like 2 days. It was incredible, the savings for things over the main line that have to shut down. We keep all of the work that we can to reasonable times and try to avoid disruption. But the funding, you'll see how we're looking towards timing that in the future. Yes, ma'am. I appreciate your input. I'll get with our project manager and just see and find out. But I know it's way early before we can incorporate any design such as that. But the district is actually running the job over at Beeline, and that's who I'm going to get in touch with right away and see how we can work with your thoughts on that, Ms. Matthews. Thank you.
Okay, Sally.
Okay, Jean took care of one of my questions. I do have two. The first is that in all of these things, I see only one project, which is the widening of the turnpike from north of Glades Road to north of the L38 Canal that includes any right of way. Is that correct? All of these improvements can take place within the existing right of way, including all the drainage improvements?
There is some right of way needed on that job. I'm seeing 429,000 that they've shown here in fiscal year 24.
But that's the only one.
Yes, ma'am. A lot of that can be, like we're going to widen the bridge over Clintmore Road in that project. It's possible some little clips on sides and ends may come out. I don't know exactly where that one right of way item is to be. I can certainly research it and find out on that project 4171321 and find out where exactly and why we're taking some right away. No, we want to keep in Palm Beach County to the lateral lines that we have now. A lot of these expansion projects give us the opportunity, which really I find it is well received by some communities when we widen, because it gives them a chance to look at a possibility of a noise wall. So sound walls, noise wall, abatement, we can't just go out and put them up. We can analyze and put them up if they're needed, if we widen, if we add capacity. So a lot of this developments have put up their own walls because they're like, oh, the turnpike's been that way since it was built. And they came in after we were built. So now that we're thinking of widening, when we do that, we analyze the noise and where is it going? And there may be a community that gets a noise wall that didn't have one before. We look at the qualifications there. A lot of great material on that on our website. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, no, I saw that was the only one that had right of way. You talked about a number of these things where there's going to be drainage changes or drainage improvements, which are required with widening. And so my interest was really more that is intended to occur all within the existing right of way.
That's correct. And some of it may be with South Florida Water Management District, because that segment from Lake Worth Road going south that you see, they are actively every day pushing the dirt around there. That canal on the west side had really kind of encroached into the turnpike right away because of just hurricanes and water and all of the things that happened to ditches. So we're working together to retain it properly so that when we widen, we're sure we've got a good foundation there.
Okay. The other question was that I did not see any mention in here about this. I know there's a project looking at the at Indian Town Road where the turnpike and I-95 are very close, and that's a horrendous situation both for traffic and then for trying to get any bicycle pedestrian pathway through that barrier. It's a nasty area to navigate. I know that one of the proposals was that there might be an interchange that would occur potentially in Martin County. I don't see any mention of that in here. Is that because that would be I-95 funding thing, so it doesn't even show up on the Turnpike radar? Or is
No.
that because that's been sort of abandoned as a potential
No, ma'am.
solution?
No, but thank you for bringing it up. I wanted to tell you about the very last page on this 18-page document. We are showing things that we haven't funded construction. This is kind of just taking a look, seeing what we can do. So the PD&E study for a new interchange on the Turnpike to connect with I-95 is shown. It's in Martin County. It's the last item on the list. And I'm pretty excited about this one because Indiantown Road is the cut through. You know, people are using it to get over from one facility to the other. I do it. I think it's very handy, but it's an impact on the locals that we recognize and we see the volume. So we're looking at trying to make it connect seamlessly. And looking at Indiantown Road, you've got some very important environmental issues to consider. So going north from Indiantown Road, you know, we've got the beautiful park, we've got the Jonathan Dickinson, right? And that abuts the side there. We've got the wild and scenic Loxahatchee River. We've got the very huge span of the Thomas B. Manuel Bridge that goes over that Okeechobee Waterway. And those we can't work well with to put this crossover. We want to protect them. So we had to continue a little further north and it ended up being in Martin County, but around milepost 125, it's near Martin Highway, is where we're proposing a direct connect. Don't even get off, don't hit an arterial. You come right over and you swing right in and you're on the other road. Fort Pierce, at the end of that 37-mile study, same thing. They're using it as it backs up so badly in evacuations. And we don't like that a bit. So we're working also on that end. There's not nearly the volume, but when you have an evacuation, it gets very crowded there. So we're also analyzing what can happen. And you'll see on this page, we've got 3 other preliminary engineering efforts, a PD&E actually too. Maybe we'll put up a new interchange at Hypoluxo Road. That's something that we will take a very close look at. We're going to look at it starting in the year 2026. Widening from Beeline going north to PGA, that is not on our funded construction list, but we're going to see what kind of volume we have. Maybe we need more than the lanes we thought we did to add. And then going up, you see also that north of the L38 canal to north of Atlantic. Man, that's only 2 miles, but there's significant amount again of us, the infrastructure for us to look at and tighten up. So that's some of the things in Palm Beach County and Broward. We've got a few others dealing with sawgrass. And if you're interested in seeing the other counties, it's all detailed in that summary.
Okay, if we could, Sally, do you have any more questions? We can move on to the next.
No, that was it. Jean had mentioned the possible impact that they could have in their bridge construction crossing over Beeline.
Yeah, I
Highway.
have more on that, but I'll wait till the end. Margie,
I have 2 virtually. I have Bruce and Fadi.
Bruce?
Yes. Just a quick one. Does FDOT have a position or are they considering anything along the lines of charging stations?
Yes, sir. We have charging stations already.
I haven't been on the road for a couple of years now. So.
Oh, good. Well, if you get the chance and you care to see, we have set up, or even virtually, floridasturnpike.com. You can take a look and see some of the investments that we have made in electric charging stations. They've been installed. Tesla started the effort 2 years ago with some of their charging stations coming in. Now we have additional types of charging stations. I understand there's fast charge and trickle charge, and there's some options. I was even going through the Port St. Lucie Fort Pierce Service Plaza and noticed we have recliners. You put a quarter in and you get a little massage while you wait for your car to charge. That's just one of the type of features in our Service plazas, we try to maintain gas there for emergencies, keep that roadway moving. We have a lot of safety PPE kind of equipment for those using the fuel stations. The restrooms and the food facilities are mostly open now, socially distanced and masked.
Okay, thank you. Bruce, did you have more? Should we move on to
Nope.
Fadi?
No, just that one. Thanks.
Fadi?
Yeah, good presentation. Thank you. I have a question. I mean, when I worked in Broward, I used to use the turnpike every day. I take Southern and then get on the turnpike. My question is the connection between Southern and the turnpike. I know in the old days you had to have a very weird shape of ramps because of the toll plaza, and you don't need it. I mean, now it's all electronic payment. Why wouldn't it be a simple kind of diamond interchange instead of having to go half a mile up and half a mile down? I mean, if you think about it, people spend 20 cents at least in gas to do that. Plus, if it's a truck, maybe it's about 50 cents to just go up and go down. You have to, have a signal. So you have to wait to make a left turn. And so it's both kind of wasting of gas, wasting of pollution, instead of simply having a simple ramp over, over the canal. So I hope the turnpike, will start kind of looking at these weird interchanges you used to have in the past and see if you can really simplify them. It's not only the cost, of building or the toll, but also, the environmental costs and the gas, consumption gas. So this is my point. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that input and I will take it back. This is an opportunity that we are looking at all kinds of ways to enhance those interchanges. Jog Road, I think we're going to make it a 4-way instead of just 2. Thank you.
Was there any other comments? Because I have some.
I did have Jean raise her tent card again, but that's all for virtual.
Okay, Jean?
Just real quick, I know you're working with county planners. We've had rezoning applications come in fairly recently. Southern and 20 Mile Bend is an application for 1.2 million square feet of warehouse. Atlantic and the Turnpike, there was discussion of another 1 million square feet of warehouse. And the Moroso track has already had an application submitted for warehouse. So with online shopping and all the online delivery trucks, it's something to consider.
Thank you. We are very aware of the increase in the freight traffic. We've seen that consistently, even throughout pandemic. So we're happy to support any efforts we can relating to that, including turning distances. If we see a volume, we want to be sure that the big trucks can make a corner. We're not trying to make it too tight, like that turn at Southern that Mr. Nasser mentioned. It's a tight turn to get in there. Thank you.
Anybody else before I start? Okay. This board is related. Our work is on bicycle, pedestrian, trailways, multimodal systems. So one of the main goals and visions of the TPA is to provide a safe, efficient, and connected multimodal transportation system. What is the Turnpike and these billions of dollars worth of improvements doing to improve our multimodal transportation system? That's just a very general thing. And then let me give you some examples of things that when I look at this program, and Jean touched on some of this, and we've talked about it in the past, some things like bridge replacement, not just in certain locations. It's throughout our system. And we was it 2 years ago passed a resolution to send to the Turnpike. The TPA presented this in when there are plans to do these changes, to make sure that the systems, that what you are doing doesn't prohibit the future of multimodal shared use paths, even things that we haven't seen before. Maybe these electric transit systems that Elon Musk is doing in Fort Lauderdale will become something that we don't want to preclude. So making sure that as part of these billions of dollars of research and construction, that we don't box ourselves in. For example, the one that Jean brought up, but also in Jupiter, we can't make that connection from our greenway system under the turnpike because there's a 4-foot clearance to get to the Okeechobee Lake Trail through Riverbend Park. So systematically, what we're asking is to, when you do these PD and E studies and look at all this, I know your focus is on the vehicle, but please think about how we can make these multimodal connections. Please give us information ahead of time so that we can spend time to look at it, because there's a lot of detail in this that I just got today that I would like, and I'm going to talk about some of it, but I'd like to make sure we see these again, because there's a lot of big decisions that can affect not just, the next 5 years, but 10, 15, 50 years from now, and how our children and grandchildren will be able to use transit and not just get in the car, use their bikes, be able to walk, and I think that, some of that stuff, as well as the drainage, you talked about drainage improvements at Glades and Atlantic and all these other ones. These are real opportunities to instill landscape infrastructure so that you're not just doing a monotonous use, single purpose use program to drain and deal with stormwater. It is an environment, it is an opportunity for us, and we can no longer have the luxury of just creating these drainage systems just for the transportation that that gets the most money. We need to come up with solutions that include the environment, making sure we're resilient and sustainable, and including these trailways and shared use paths. I know Ted doesn't like them, but some of us do. But it is a collaborative and complex effort that needs to be thought of together. So I encourage you, please give us this stuff ahead of time, and please come back, because these drainage systems can be a really good opportunity for our future, for multimodal, for a place where people can feel comfortable to use their bikes, to walk and get through as we grow, as we evolve. So that's my overall. You can answer however I know you're going to answer, but I really want to impress upon you that first, we need to include if you come to this board, can you talk about things that are multimodal, at least, hearing the widening and the, we're going to add lanes and do these interchanges. I didn't hear sidewalks. I didn't hear trails. I didn't hear any of that, or even how you think about how you're going to interrelate with those systems.
Thank you. I would give a small comment. I want to tell you, we do appreciate your input. We try to incorporate what we can. When the time comes to do construction, we work with locals to enhance to the best of our ability and keeping safety in mind. We can't have any pedestrian paths inside of the lateral lines of the turnpike. It's not appropriate. But we have worked with locals about adjacent properties, perhaps that may be city or county owned, that there might be a municipal plan to work together. And on brand new roadways that we have created, a lot of these near Orlando and further north. Right now, the Villages is another area that it's a request and need for interchanges. when we put those in, we look at what the locals need in that community. It's golf carts. They use a lot of them. They want a path that will accommodate and be able to turn through and go along. We just worked on the Atlantic, not Palm Beach County, but Broward, Atlantic Trailhead at Sawgrass Expressway is a very popular stop for bike riders and walkers that go up on the berm. And we've seen a lot of flooding in that area, in the parking area, to use that trail. And we also want to be sure when we work on the interchange that bicycles and pedestrians have a safe way to get to that park. So all of our public meeting interactions have been to get the details of what is needed. Would you rather have the sidewalk? Would you like the bike path? Would you rather have a shared use path? These are the type of comments that we need to get when we're to that stage in design of putting together an interchange and working around our facility. Now, here in Palm Beach County, this road was built a long time ago, and it's not going to be feasible to increase the roadway to make a path underneath, generally speaking. But when we get there and we have to work on an interchange, put up a new bridge, I agree 100%. That's the time to get input and work with locals to the extent we can about what's needed. So
So south of Becker Road and B lines, those are two opportunities that I see in your work plan that you really should be looking at in terms of, you know, trying to make sure that the turnpike doesn't preclude those connections as it is where Gene and I are talking about, you know, so that that decision isn't made and then it takes millions of dollars to fix it.
Sure. At the time of construction is the right time. We go to the communities, we ask questions. There's a public hearing coming up now for our work program. And it's going to be given an opportunity for everybody in the public to participate in person or at online. And those opportunities should be as well on the website. I think it's January 18th, if I can.
Are you going to
might
be
be
coming
Miami.
back to us anytime soon so that I'd like time to look at what was proposed.
That's great. I know our work program process is like for the district, I think October 11th is when they get their final numbers. So timing wise, they're kind of restricted statewide with what we have to do. And your understanding of this is probably there. I'm not saying something that you probably don't know already. But so our entity looks at the legislature and offers what our work program will be. That's why we call it tentative. And we're given those allocations. The district has even more work to do because they have a lot of grants. They have a lot more sources of income that they're divvying out. So I think October 11th was their date, which isn't coinciding with the early meetings that are being held at Palm Beach and no meetings in November. So when this goes up and the legislature rubber stamps and says, okay, no, yes, maybe, we will have gotten the input from everyone. That's why I'm here. I apologize. I don't have my sister agency District 4 representative here is to give you more details, but the website will show you even further district jobs that will have a lot more sidewalks. It will have all of what you're looking for pedestrians, bicycles in your county. And please give us input. Attend that virtually. Go to that public meeting. Tell us what input we can make and influences that we can have. It does depend on input from communities. I'm not normally at the bicycle and pedestrian meetings. Frankly, the turnpike's restriction of having people walking along in this high-speed corridor is clear. But where we have an opportunity is with transit. We don't charge additional to a transit bus to use a through lane. And even right now, express lanes do not charge transit buses any fee to use those facilities to encourage use of transit. And we are hoping that by providing us a very timely and on-time ride, that more people will use transit. So that's the role that we see for the Turnpike with these statutory restrictions on how we can spend the money. That's the way that we try our best to support transit, is to give that infrastructure.
Brian?
Thank you. You stated that there is no space in the lateral lines. Is it in District 4 or statewide for bicycle pedestrian facilities?
There's a new road that the Turnpike is part of that incorporated.
Right, that's what I'm
shared use
getting at,
path.
because
Brand new road, all of the, yeah,
there's an existing 50-mile trail
okay.
in DOT District Enterprise right away, which I worked on. It was, I
Excellent.
worked on the extension for it. I'm well aware of the Suncoast extension, which, you know, also incorporated an extension of that pathway. So I think it would be a little bit premature to say that that these facilities could not necessarily fall within the district enterprise right away. That being said, the district is very clear about not wanting to maintain them in those areas when they are expanded.
I see.
So I think that when the opportunities arise, and I know that when I was working for the state, the Environmental Service Decision Management Program, I think is what the acronym was, did not necessarily make it all the way to the, you know, to every agency that should have been reviewing them. So if you could just make sure that the TPA is aware and involved in those decisions whenever they receive it, that way they can share it maybe with the TPA board members for their comments, might be one means to help make sure that all of the entities are receiving the opportunity to review process. Sometimes that's primarily what it was, is that the contact point was out of date or something along those lines.
Oh.
That's where the hiccup typically happens. And sometimes those comments that Jean and Sally offered, and, you know, Stephanie hammered in on, I think those opportunities get missed sometimes when the people aren't at the table or given the opportunity to review. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I didn't realize how much money was going into Palm Beach County. It's kind of eye-opening. And when you think about it, I think that there's definitely room for a little bit for the considerations for bicycle pedestrian facilities and amenities. So.
Quite a few users of our facility, and because of the constraint of development in Palm Beach County along our roadways, that's very prohibitive dollar amount to expand, and it's really not within the Florida statutes for Turnpike to do. But we do work with our sister agency, FDOT District, Brian, to bring these up when we encounter them. Yes,
Great.
sir.
Okay, so are we done with that item? We want to move on to the next? Thank you, Victoria.
You're welcome.
Please keep us in mind. The next item is the strategic plan action 6B, modify the TPA committees to support TPA initiatives. And this is an amendment, draft amendments to the operating procedures of the BTPAC. Alyssa.
Yes, so Stephanie stated it. This is an information item that will come to you again as an action item in the future. And this is to modify the TPA committees to support TPA initiatives. So this is modifying the operating procedures of the BTPAC. So the purpose of this is, like I had just stated, to modify the TPA committees to support TPA initiatives. And this is in our strategic plan, and it's action item 6.B. This is to ensure that the committee reflects a broad cross-section of pedestrian and bicycle safety advocates. And part of this change is to actually change the name from Bicycle Trailways Pedestrian Advisory Committee, or BTPAC, to the Pedestrian Bicycle Safety Committee, or PBSC. The draft changes to the committee's role actually updates what would be PBSC, the role to advance those elements of the Palm Beach TPA's Vision Zero action plan oriented around pedestrian and bicycle safety. And this will also allow us the ability to address other matters and concerns when directed by the TPA or the PBSC. So this is still maintaining the role to look at pedestrian and bicycle facilities, but with a safety lens. The draft changes to the committee functions are very similar to what they were. The committee will continue to review and provide recommendations to the TPA governing board regarding applications submitted through the annual Transportation Alternatives Program, including the ability to rank projects. The TPA's long-range long-range transportation plan, priority project lists, transportation improvement plan, and unified planning work program. Other TPA-led transportation plan studies and reports, transportation plan studies, reports, and project designs presented to the TPA by partner agencies, regional transportation plans, studies, reports, and projects, and other items of interest determined by the TPA or the Pedestrian Bicycle Safety Committee. So a few draft changes on the committee structure. This would redefine the membership to include local governments, health departments, law enforcement and fire rescue services, school district, active transportation advocacy groups, and other entities that are deemed appropriate by the governing board. And I guess it is important to mention that that does not change. It at this moment adds additional positions in the roles that I had just touched on. It does not change the existing membership from what we have at this moment. So any questions? And I guess this will be an action item scheduled for December, as we do not have a meeting in November.
Do you have any public comment, Margie?
No, Madam Chair.
Does anybody have any? Jean?
I have concerns that we're taking Trailways out of our name, because I think we do weigh in on trails, and I think we worked hard to modify the scoring so that some trail projects could be approved.
So this does not change the scoring at this time. This again just puts an emphasis on safety, which is in line with our Vision Zero action plan and our long range transportation plan and our mission and vision of the agency. This was actually a best practice from around the state and a request by the governing board in the strategic plan to focus our existing bicycle and pedestrian committee on safety elements. So again, that's not removing Trailways from potential projects or anything, but it's just, again, zooming in our focus on safety. So if there is like a shared use path or trail somewhere, that is another way for active transportation users to get around. That's not saying let's not talk about that or look at that, but again, just focusing our goals and what we're looking at as a committee on safety of active transportation users.
Margie?
I have Bobby with his hand raised.
Bobby?
Yeah, my question is, do we have currently a representation from law enforcement and fire rescue?
At this time, we do not have either. So this would be opening up the opportunity to get those types of representatives on our committee. And I mean, their input is very important to our review on safety. So
I think I agree. I think if we want to focus on safety, then we need those two agencies to be part of our group. Thank you.
Brian?
I would echo what Fadi said with respect to having a law enforcement and fire department representative on the proposed bicycle pedestrian safety committee. Just for clarification's purposes, if the MPO had the responsibility required through at least the Sun Trail program to rank projects, that this committee would still have that responsibility for ranking under this proposed modification?
yes, so this does not take away any responsibility from the organization to rank proposed projects like that. It again is just emphasizing the emphasis on safety. But again, part of what was mentioned, and I will pull it back up on the screen. So the committee structure, back one. So the function also does allow the committee to review and provide recommendations on other items of interest that are considered important by both the TPA governing board and by the committee.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I do not have any other hands raised.
Okay. Well, we ready to move on to the next item then? Administrative items, FDOT scheduling reports. It's informational only, no staff presentation. Does anyone have any comments or about these administrative items that are listed in the, are they listed here? Where are they? In the
They
back?
were, yeah, they were attached in the backup. And then, Madam Chair, I don't have any public comments on that item.
Okay. Anybody? We're all ready to go. Is that what it is? So the next meeting is in December. So happy Thanksgiving to everyone. And the next meeting is December 2nd. So with that, can we adjourn? Yes. All right. Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
everybody.